I'm connected here via two devices just to make sure that the interpretation works. I prepared a little presentation for you and I'm going to share it right now. But just before, I would like to congratulate the organizers for putting together such a wonderful event to talk about such an important topic, our food, our nature. How can they come together in a more harmonious way? I would like to really congratulate you from all of my heart. And also to congratulate the previous speakers. And I saw also in the program extremely interesting upcoming speakers. It's truly great. So here it is, my little presentation. Um, I I'm talking today for you um, as a representative of a national organization of peasants, small-scale family farmers. We identify as peasants in our country, and we're working at national level. We have over 17,000 members in all the regions of our country, and we do both practical and the political work, trying to influence decisions of our authorities in favor of small-scale family farming. And also we do educational work and many other things. We are part of international peasant movement, which is also organized at European level. In Europe, we have over 31 local and national organizations as members, and we're present in 21 countries in Western Europe and also in Eastern Europe. We are, as a movement, as the international movement, we're part of the international La Via Campesina, which is basically the largest social movement in the world, with over 200 million peasant families that are members of our movement. And I'm going to tell you later on what we're also doing as a peasant movement, how we get organized, what kind of results we have achieved, and how we intend to work in the future for supporting small-scale family farmers. You probably noticed that I say small-scale family farmers. Unfortunately, the term family farms has been questioned and debated a lot, and you also find sometimes industrial farms or industrial farmers that identify themselves as a family farmer, simply because the business is also maintained at family level, or their family is somewhat involved in the farming business. But what is important for us, and this term, we believe that it needs to promote mostly the small scale dimension of the family farming, because they are the most vulnerable and also the most important in the food production. So I want to tell you a few words now about our region, Europe. Many times when we refer to Europe, we tend to think of the developed countries and tend to believe that Europe is a homogeneous region. But actually, it's one of the most diverse regions in the world. We have basically the eastern and the western side of it, where you have different systems. You have agriculture is not only privatized like you have in Western European countries. You also have in the eastern part the state that plays quite an important role in the food production. Like for example, in Belarus case, the state is the main food producer. They're extremely engaged in farming. They own the natural resources, the land, the market, and so on. That doesn't mean, of course, that private individuals, private family farmers are not existing, not at all. It just means that the systems are quite diverse, and we can't only refer to the bad things that the corporations are doing. There are also bad things done by the state themselves. So not everything is so homogeneous or black and white. The small scale agroecological farming many times is presented as an alternative, as a niche for the market, for the food systems, but actually it is a mainstream production system, and it actually represents the solution to many of our problems, the climate change that we're confronted with, the social and poverty problems we're confronted with in the rural areas. Farming is not one single type of activity. There are two dominant types of farming. We have on the one side industrial farming, and on the other side we have a small scale agroecological farming system that is engaging a lot of people. Actually, the majority of the people who are active in agriculture are practicing small scale agroecological farming. Of course, in our region, in Europe, the majority of these small-scale family farms are in the eastern part of Europe. I give you the example of Romania. I live in a peasant country, in a small-scale farmers country. We have a very high rural population. 46% of our population lives, works in rural areas. We count about 4.7 million active peasants in our country, which actually represent over 40% of the total number of small-scale farmers in European Union. And in my country, more than 99% of the people who work in agriculture, who are engaged in any way in agriculture or food production, are these small-scale family farmers, peasants, as we identify ourselves. And we are using less than 50% of the farmland, of course, to produce for a very high number, an even higher number of people, to produce food, for our communities, for our cities, for our country, basically. There's another important element about the state of play, is the fact that the public policies, food standards, public funds, they are shaped and support mostly the industrial food production and distribution model. So basically these people, the majority of the people who are engaged in farming, these small scale family farmers are left behind. They are not receiving the support that they would so much need. This support goes mostly to the industrial food production model that engages around 1% of the people. So the situation from this point of view is very unbalanced, very unfair. There are many examples of public policies or public funds that go towards the industrial model. We have in the European Union the Common Agriculture Policy, which pretends to just verbally to support small-scale farming, family farming, but in fact they give most of the money for subsidies, for different support measures to the industry, to the very rich part of the farming sector. And you have also the different financial institutions who give a lot of public money to the private sector or to the states, to the countries, for producing food industrially. You have the IMF, the World Bank, the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, who has been given a lot of money to supermarkets to install themselves in Eastern Europe and so on. What is very important also to know is that 80% of the food that is consumed at global level actually comes from small-scale family farms. And this is an information, it's an official, there are official data coming from FAO, the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. This situation is also relevant for Europe. The majority of the food that is actually consumed by the people comes from the small scale, and people are looking for this kind of food, and I'll tell you soon why. I wanted to share with you also from my country some illustrations about how villages are organized and how much the land is fragmented and is worked by a lot of people. Um, both villages that are in plain areas, but also villages that are more in the mountain and hill areas. So you see here how divided the land is. We think that this is a beneficial thing because we need as many people as possible to practice agriculture, to own land, to produce food, and so on. This is having more farmers engaged, more people engaged in agriculture ensures the sustainability of family farming. And you have here also a wonderful landscape that is maintained and created by small-scale agroecological farming. And here as well in more hill mountain farming. Yeah, and I wanted to go further into why, what makes small-scale family farming sustainable. What would be the key elements of this sustainability? First of all, it's the food quality. Yeah, people are looking for this food because it's tasty, it's nutritious, it's diverse. You have in family small scale farming, you find many varieties of vegetables, of fruits. While in industrial farming, you know, because of the trade conditions, because of the industrial standards, they prefer to focus on one or two varieties of yeah, as I said, vegetables or fruit. Um, this food that is produced by the small scale family farmers is also fresh. It's culturally appropriate. It's fresh because it's mostly distributed at local level. It's healthy, yeah. It's healthy for the human consumption, for animal consumption. Let's not forget that we are not only producing for humans, but also producing for our animals. It's healthy for the environment because we're using less chemicals. And with our agroecological practices, we're less aggressive with soil and with the natural resources that we're using as for food production, as means of food production. It's really productive. There is this myth that industrial farming gets more support because it's more productive, but it's actually not true. And there are many studies out there, and we can confirm as we're practitioners that in 1 hectare or one small-scale family farmer can produce much more than an industrial farmer can, because we are very effective in using the soil and the natural resources like seeds and water, and the financial resources as well. We organize always the crops in a very diverse way, and we're able to produce more in terms of quantity, but also diversity than industrial farming is. Also economically, this type of farming is oriented more towards local economy, and local economy is the most important type of economy. We see now we're in a crisis, yeah, this pandemic that showed us how vulnerable the international market is and how important it is to maintain this pillar of strength, the local economy, because when the global economy collapses, local economy is there to support us, to provide for us. It's also very important because the small scale family farmers are able to produce food, to provide food for affordable prices. And this is very important for vulnerable categories of the population, like the elderly, the old people who need nutritious food and who don't have so much money. And also for the younger people who have the same kind of needs, and they're in the beginning of their lives and not making so much money. I'm talking about societies where you actually have a lot of peasants, yeah, where you have a very vivid rural area where many people produce food. Unfortunately, in countries like Great Britain, or extremely developed countries that don't have so much peasants, indeed the small scale food producers are not able to produce for very affordable prices. So That's why it is really important to have a rich peasant communities, rich small-scale food producers community. Small-scale farming is also generating a lot of employment. It's the highest kind of employment, actually. I give you an example. My family has, we have around 2 hectares, a bit more than 2 hectares, and we're creating minimum 10 jobs a year for approximately 6 months. We need work for, all kinds of seasonal work, for the crops, for the animals, construction work, and we're able to generate, just as a small scale family farm with 2 hectares, around 10 seasonal jobs. While an industrial farm, I give you the example of an industrial farm in Romania owned by Agricost, for example. It's they're hiring less than 100 people, and they have more than 60,000 hectares. So if you compare these to the numbers, always small scale farming is going to show that is much more economically viable. It distributes the wealth much more. It generates the highest level of employment. And also it's an employment that is employing locally, that is fair. It creates humane work conditions and so on. Things that are many times debatable and questionable when it comes to industrial farming. And I wanted to tell you just a few words about what kind of role the small scale food producers have in the society, these small scale family farmers. Well, we're not, we have a very, very complex role because we're working with life, with forms of life, plants, animals, the soil, water, and many things that need a lot of knowledge, need us to really always learn, always innovate. So we're food producers first, of course. We're practitioners of agroecology, most of us. We're biologists. We need to understand the elements of nature so that we can work with them. We're veterinarians. We many times have to take care of our animals with no help or in emergency. So we need this kind of knowledge. We're land workers. Yeah, we actively work the land, and we are cooks as well, because we preserve food for the winter. So we invented all kinds of recipes for that, and so on. We're also, I said, we're innovators. We're fabricating our own work tools many times. We ameliorate plant genetic resources. So all of these seeds that exist on the planet have been maintained and improved by generations and generations of peasants since agriculture was invented, since about 10,000 years. So peasants were the ones who got to this level. We're employers, as I said before. We're marketers. We're marketing our products to the local markets. We're educators. Yeah, we are transforming, transferring and improving knowledge in our families, in our communities. We don't have this capacity like the presenter from Russia to produce very pedagogical tools, but we mostly focus on transfer of knowledge that is based on practice. But it's a very sustainable kind of education, because it really, the education is really solid. Yeah, it's been how knowledge was transferred until now, through practice, and we need to support it. We need to recognize it as a form of education, and we need to promote it more. It cannot die, because it's so important. It has proven to be so sustainable until now. And we're also artisans. We're also artists. We produce music. We produce poetry. We produce textiles, ceramic, all kinds of accessories. And finally, yeah, we're permanent scholars. We have to permanently learn. We're confronted, especially because we're confronted daily with the effects of climate change. We daily have to learn what is happening so that we can fight back, and we're always been in the first lines fighting with climate change effects, and we've been the first ones to always find solutions. And for that, we really need to be permanently learning. I'll finally say now, when it comes to the sustainability of small-scale family farming, what are the problems? Yeah, what are the main issues we're confronted with? Well, first, the fact that we don't get public funding support, which always goes to the industrial food and farming system, whether the funds go to private corporations or to the actual public sector, the state-owned farms. It always goes to the industrial model and not to the small-scale farming. Actually, many times this public support actually works against the small-scale family farming. Public policies with the food safety standards, they do favor the industrial system. We are not participating in decision-making processes. We're many times ignored. Many governments don't even know how to talk to us. In Eastern Europe, for example, and I'm talking now about my country, our government, does not know how to talk to us. They don't know how to engage with us. They don't like criticism. They don't have the necessary mechanisms that ensure a dialogue, a permanent dialogue, where our voice is always heard. And, it's important to do that because you need laws that reflect the reality. And we know the reality the best. Politicians are very disconnected from the reality. And, even the people from academic sector, they don't know always everything. Digitalization is another problem, and it's something that everybody's talking about. It's been something that has been pushed very frantically in these past 2 years, and is a phenomenon that is quite inaccessible for poor, especially for poor peasants, for the poor small-scale farmers in the rural countryside, and will leave us behind. Digitalization is very promoted now for food production, for market, and it will eventually generate more inequalities, more grabbing of resources by the very rich ones, and it's quite concerning for us. And finally, the issue we're confronted with is the international trade. All governments want to export. There's very little governments who want really value the local economy and local markets, and they support them. They actually invest in developing them. Everybody thinks that the international trade and the international market is the solution. But these kind of things, they push even further for industrial standards and industrial farm practices, and they are ending up marginalizing even more small-scale farmers. Now, I'll go very quickly through these next slides because I'm imagining we're having time problems. But I just want you all to know that the peasant movement that we're part of, we have been actively working. We don't wait for governments to give us anything. We are working at international level, making our demands, creating instruments that protect us, that support us, that promote us. And we've been working, and I think the gentleman from Norway, I think, who spoke about seeds, mentioned this important instrument. Our movement has initiated 20 years ago, and the idea of creating an international declaration to support and promote and articulate the human rights of peasants and people who work in rural areas. Here you have a picture of the last round of negotiation after 17 years of negotiations in Geneva at the Human Rights Council. When the declaration was adopted by the members of the Human Rights Council, it was really heavy work. We got the support of the indigenous people, the pastoralists, fisher folks, workers, many other social movements gathered in support of peasants in order to make this declaration a reality. Finally, the declaration was approved by the United Nations General Assembly in New York in December. And funny enough, Belarus voted in favor of this declaration. So you're all free to question your government about when is this declaration going to be implemented at national level. We all know that human rights are important, and we believe that if peasant rights are implemented, all the people in the society can benefit from these human rights. I just wanted to say that, you know, there are many other instruments and there is a system of human rights at the United Nations level. But this declaration comes with a new category of human rights. So you have the social rights, the cultural rights, economic rights, political rights, civil rights. But this declaration comes with the category of the rights to natural resources, the human rights of the people who work in rural areas to seeds, to water, to land. So here is the general content of the declaration. We have 28 articles, but there are 5 articles that refer to these natural resources. It's the right to land, the right to environment, a safe, clean, and healthy environment, the right to seeds, the right to biological diversity, and the right to water. The declaration is available in all the United Nations languages, including Russian, and the organizers, I'm sure can, I'm going to share it with the organizers, but I think they already know about it, and they can share it with you, so you learn more about this instrument. Now we're in a phase of implementation of this declaration. It's a very tricky and complicated process. It involves a lot of resources. It's a declaration that is unfortunately not mandatory, so it's up to governments to implement it. However, I wanted to mention here that we have a project. Our peasant organization has a project with FAO, Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, where next year we're going to start organizing trainings for governments in Eastern Europe who are not members of the European Union. So your country is part of this project, where we're going to organize trainings for governments on how to implement peasant rights in the national legislation. So we will need you to be part of this process, and we're going to be very happy to share. The project is a little bit delayed because of COVID and this fourth wave that affected us quite heavily, at least here in Romania. But I know that it's the case also in many other countries. So we're going to come back, slowly start working on this next year, and I'm very excited to share this news with you. Hopefully we're going to work together. I'm looking forward. Well, there's one element that I wanted to bring up because previous speakers already mentioned it, and I wanted to give the peasant perspective on seeds. There are two major types of seed systems in the world. You have the peasant seed systems, or if you want to call it the small-scale family farmers seeds production, and you have the industrial seed systems. Well, the peasant systems are more humane, they're small scale, they're community oriented, they include the community in everything that is that means seed production. It's produced by people, not by corporations. It's produced by using traditional knowledge and, of course, agroecological practices. It's a system that is collective, where people share the resources, the knowledge. It's local market oriented. It's producing seeds that are nutritious and tasty, which is really important nowadays, especially as we're noting that one of the biggest health problem that makes people vulnerable to COVID is malnutrition, especially obesity. And we have not been able to convince governments until now to make the connection between this obesity and who is producing this food that makes people obese, that makes people malnourished. and what is the solution, like how agroecology can play a more important role in making people healthy, giving people nutritious and healthy and tasty food, so that we avoid in the future vulnerable situations like we're facing now. The peasant seed systems are also adapted to climate conditions. They're genetically very diverse, and they are maintaining traditional and the local culinary cultures. Here are some pictures from our organization. Actually, Ekoruralis from Romania, it's actually best known for seed production. We have a lot of seed producers all over the country. And we're also creating seed distributions every year. We're working with many food producers group to only produce food from peasant seeds, from traditional seeds. In 2020, here's a little illustration of our seed distribution in 2020. When the pandemic started, we distributed seeds to 3,035 families all over the country. We also distribute seeds for free in Republic of Moldova. We have very good collaboration there. This year in 2021, we increased even more the seed distribution to approximately 5,000 families. We've been given seeds, for free in a time where it's very difficult for peasants to have access to markets. It's really difficult, and this kind of work really helps. I will actually go further now, just to tell you about a framework that exists at the United Nations level. It's the Decade for Family Farming, which started in 2019 and will end in 2028. This Decade for Family Farming was approved at the General Assembly in New York in 2018, and again Belarus voted in favor of this decade, so it's important to hold accountable the authorities on that. It has a global action plan that focuses on 7 pillars. The first pillar is about developing and promoting public policies, laws that support and strengthen family farming. Yeah, so this is one very important pillar. We are trying to use the Decade for Family Farming to promote the implementation of the Declaration of Peasant Rights. Yeah, so, and it fits in this pillar. Then you have a pillar that supports the youth, because we need in order to continue to have farming, we need the young people to be interested, to be engaged in farming. We need also to support women, so there's another pillar that supports gender equity and women's role in farming, not just as a partner but also as a leader, because women have been working so hard without being recognized for their very, very hard work. And then you have another pillar that focuses on supporting organizations of farmers, of family farmers. This is really important. And we need in every country, including in Belarus, farmers who organize and who stand up for their interests and their rights. This is a pillar that I think it's important for this discussion. It's improving socio-economic inclusion, resilience, and well-being of family farmers. So here we need to create more economic opportunities. We need to open up more and support more local markets for the small-scale family farmers. We need to make these people rewarded for their work. So the economic aspect is really important. And also, another pillar that is relevant for the conference is the promotion of the sustainability of family farming for climate resilient food systems. Yeah, small-scale family farming or family farming in general is sustainable, and we need to recognize it more. We need to promote it more. It is a solution to climate change, and is a solution for social issues, and you have here several elements of the sustainability. It's important to have public policies that improve family farmers' rights to use, manage, and control natural resources. Yeah, so water, land, ocean, genetic resources, seeds, forests, and so on. We need to promote the innovative aspect of family farming. We need to promote more farmer-to-farmers exchange. So this educational process that exists naturally in rural areas. We need to promote more the indigenous and traditional knowledge because it's been quite invisibilized. And we need to develop an inclusive market environment. Again, the economic element needs to be more open to small-scale family farmers, to family farmers in general. Yeah, there's a final pillar that refers to the diversity and the multidimensionality of family farming. And our interest in this decade, as I was saying before, is to promote the small scale side of family farming. So to promote the small scale family farming as a focus, not just any kind of family farming, to promote human rights, to promote the implementation of the Declaration for the Rights of Peasants, and of course to promote the diversity of food producers, and to be inclusive for peasants, for indigenous people, for pastoralists, for fisher, for landless people, for workers, and so on. There are many instruments out there that we're trying to use to promote small-scale family farming. I'm not going to go through them. So on top of the Peasant Rights Declaration, there are several others that refer to seeds, organic farming, the right to food, land, and so on. Thank you so much. I really hope I didn't take too much of your time, and I will stop here.